Please note that the information provided in this podcast is for general informational purposes only and is not intended to be a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Hey, welcome to Fertility Ain't Fair, the podcast where we normalize the conversations around infertility, reproductive health, and wellness. I'm your host, Brittany Jackson, here to share laughs, tears, and aha moments as we dive into our wild world with a girl who truly gets it by sharing personal insights from my own experience. Along the way, we're joined by guests who open up about their journeys, the highs, the heartbreaks, and everything in between. So whether you're new to the infertility world, looking for support, or just trying to figure it all out, this is your space to feel seen, heard, and maybe even laugh along the way. Real, raw, unfiltered, because fertility, it ain't fair, but you don't have to face it alone. Well, we are back for another episode of Fertility Ain't Fair, the podcast. I'm your host, Brittany Jackson, and as you can see and you will hear, I am not alone. I'm so fortunate to have Nicole Lange, who is now a part of our community. We have some things about her, though, we need to get into to kind of stage for what we're talking about. A lot to unpack, as always, because nothing in our space is ever easy. That's why we do this. But Nicole, thank you for being here. And I loved when I got your bios. You said you were a rebel in this space, and I'm here for it. But Nicole is revolutionizing fertility care by addressing what everyone else ignores. And I can't believe we're still ignoring this. The trauma caused by the treatment itself and all of the things. We're going to discuss PTSD and fertility. We're going to discuss PCOS and endo. We're going to find out what baby blinders are, because that was a new term for me that I thought made so much sense. And we're also going to discuss acupuncture and fertility, because we love a good needlepoint over here. Because Nicole is also an acupuncturist specializing in women's emotional wellness and fertility, and has been present for over, y'all get the number, 1,000 embryo transfers while consistently delivering outcomes that surpass expectations. She has a trauma-enforced approach to prevent the PTSD that affects over 50% of people in fertility treatments. And we'll definitely discuss that, because I would imagine it's probably more than that, but we'll go with half. And making sure that you have the proof that when you work your whole body, not just your reproductive organs and parts, that conception odds and life quality dramatically improve. We're also going to discuss her company, Life Healing Life, but I'll be quiet now and say welcome. Welcome to Fertility Ain't Fair, Nicole.
3-hour podcast. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
Look, I want to give all the flowers, all the kudos to all the women who are doing amazing work, and men, but filling up podcast is a little bit biased because we're mostly girl power over here with our guests. So yeah, whenever we have someone who says, yes, I will speak to a stranger. Yes, I will give my expertise and my skill set and my passion. Like, we're just so thankful. So I want to make sure we have mostly all of your good bio points, because they're important.
I'm so glad to be here, and I've really enjoyed listening to your show.
Thank you. Well, let's go ahead and dive in, because again, we could be here for quite some time. We always need parts 2, 3, and 4. I feel like every single episode feels that way. So let's jump in. So first things first, I ask every single guest, how are you currently defining yourself in this place called life? Words, phrases to get to know a little bit more about who you are for our audience.
Yeah, I'm in a really fun stage, at least it is for me. I am fully perimenopausal and in an age where we're starting to talk about it and have more science and resources. And so I love learning. So the opportunity to learn a whole nother level of women's health and dive in, that is the season I am in my personal life. And I've really enjoyed the author Lisa Mosconi. She's a researcher's work on the different phases of brain brain hormonal connections. And she talks about perimenopause being a time where we prune off the caregiving and start doing self-exploration and caregiving to the greater community. So that is absolutely my season. And I'm connecting with my friends. I'm doing podcasts. I'm connecting with strangers around the world on podcasts. And it is a really phenomenal stage to be in.
It sounds like it. And I love that this is the vibe that you were getting from perimenopause, that, because For someone else, it might be the complete opposite, but I love this for you.
And I am on HRT, and I am about using all the resources available and not polarizing and picking sides. So I think when we do it like that, so much of our life, even, dare I say, infertility can feel more like that than what we typically do. So it's really fun to be able to like put it to the test.
I totally agree. Kindred spirits on that. I'm for all the things. If it's not going to kill me, give it to me. Let's figure it out. But you know, I'm for a holistic approach. I'm for a little bit of everything in your toolkit to make sure that you are doing, you know, and being and feeling the best that you can be. So with that being said, prior to this phase of life, there's other phases that were prior to this. So one thing that I know that you shared was that you have dealt with PCOS and endometriosis. And so I am sure that I'm hoping maybe, I don't know, you can tell me, are some of the symptoms better these days or not? But I want to know, that could be a whole episode by itself. But because we all get it, we discuss these things a lot on this show. As you all know, I'm an endo. But how did you get diagnosed with each condition, and kind of what have you learned along the way to have the best quality of life possible with these two conditions?
Yeah. I mean, I basically self-diagnosed, and then my doctors were like, oh yeah, you do have that. So I think that's what a lot of us do as we're advocating and if we're into paying attention to our body signs. But I had this stereotypical, I think, experience of got my period. It was miserable, flooding through everything, like just in agony. I would lose so much blood. It felt like my legs were going to give out from under me, just feeling exhausted. And so coming from a really strict Black and white parochial upbringing, I snuck off to Planned Parenthood with friends and got a birth control prescription so I could try to manage the pain and the bleeding. And I did that for many, many years because I was not steeped in holistic medicine. I was not like a kid that grew up in a family that was all about this sort of thing that I do now. And I did that, and I was like, okay. And my period just slowly, my withdrawal bleed on my sugar pills just slowly went away. And then I didn't have a period. And it turns out in hindsight, that was probably the polycystic ovarian syndrome kicking it as I went into my 20s. And by the time I got off birth control pill, as I was getting married in my mid to late 20s, I didn't get a period back for 2 years. I was off birth control pill and it just didn't come back. And so at that point, I was also in acupuncture school, and I had come to acupuncture school for all sorts of other things. Reproductive stuff wasn't really on my radar, but sexual wellness was, because part of what brought me to acupuncture school was a sexual assault and a lot of childhood trauma. And so I was looking for things to connect the dot between things like complex PTSD and sleep and digestion. And it turned out hormones and periods were just like, add that on top of the list. And so when I didn't get my period back, I was like, oh, this is one more thing. And so I slowly worked on holistically getting a cycle back. And it was like, 90-day cycle, 60-day cycle, 40-day cycle. But it was coming back, trending in the right direction. But still, my whole period was like a half a day of spotting some months or some cycles. And so I'm also a really good testimony for, like, you do not have to be perfect. I think it's so easy for us when we enter the infertility space, where once we're like, this isn't happening, all of a sudden, all these normal variations that are very human start to be like, that must be a problem. That must be a problem. And that's what I thought. I was like, this is going to be a problem. Yeah. But thankfully, I was doing holistic medicine for all these other reasons. And by the time my husband and I decided to try to have kids, I had like a 35-day cycle with a day of spotting, and I got pregnant. So it's slightly obnoxious how I got pregnant right away, because I did not anticipate it. I thought, no, there's so much further that I have to get. And at that point, I'd graduated and been doing some fertility extensive training. And I was like, this is good enough. And so that's really one of the things that I love about Chinese medicine, is it recognizes that this is a medical condition, but also there are continuums of sensitivity. We know people that are very out of balance that are popping out kids left and right. And we know people that are like pristine lifestyle and doing everything right. And it's like their body's saying no. So there's just these continuums of sensitivity to different sorts of issues that can be going on that really ain't fair. Like, I love the title. It's like, it's really not fair.
No other way to put it. It just ain't.
It's the perfect way to put it.
Yeah. So did you find that you were able to, I know they both can be, right, chronic conditions, right? Because, do you find that now currently that you feel like you are, healed from both conditions? Do you think that there's still, because here's the thing, we could do our very best, this, and some days it's everything's working for your good, and you just feel good. You're like, wow, this is okay. This is like how life should be. And then you have some days where you do the same exact thing, and you still feel like a truck hit you. Yeah. But do you feel like you have got to a place where, okay, I could manage these two things? I do have more, good days than bad, and I've kind of learned how to, I won't say trick the body, or because it's not tricking. It's healing your body from the inside out. It's training your body, how to best be itself. So do you think you've done that at this point?
Yeah, I would think, to me, I'm like, the word that came to mind is like hack your body, it's like, because both of these conditions are what are called polygenetic, right? So there's like lots of little genetic changes that add up to predispose people to both endo and PCOS. And then we have certain lifestyle things that can like flip the switch over, certain experiences, certain kinds of even generational trauma. And so yeah, it really is about you're not going to change that. You have these multiple genetic markers that predispose you to PCOS or to endometriosis, but you can recognize that you have that and know what that means, and then hack that and work with that. So I absolutely have way more good days than bad, but I also have had laparoscopic surgery for my endo. I am on HRT to shut my still cycling irregularly perimenopausal body down, so it's continuous, so I don't have that rise and fall of estrogen that was still feeding into my endo cycling and all that inflammatory cascade that goes with that. And so, and my daughter's on the other side of the spectrum. I have a kiddo who got her period when she was 11, very endo-y. She's given me permission to share this with people and talk about it publicly. But I was like, you're going on birth control right away, continuous. We're not just going to let that keep on spreading. And there are other ways to deal with it, but not so much in an 11 and a 12-year-old,
Yeah.
So, here I am at this side of the spectrum, not letting my endo cycle with continuous HRT. And of course, a lot of other big picture things, which I'm really excited to talk about. But that's the reductionist treatment that I'm doing for that particular part of my genetic predisposition. Yeah. And then for the polycystic ovarian syndrome, that's, again, complicated, multi-genetic, but it is a predisposition to having blood sugar issues really at the bottom. And I eat really well. I'm an acupuncturist. Of course, I go through McDonald's drive-through sometimes. Of course, I have a cocktail sometimes, but I'm a very moderate, balanced, lots of plants. I am just skewing right towards pre-diabetic, so it's one of those things that I think the definition to me of living well is like knowing what we have and not being shamed for it.
Yeah.
Not feeling like it's a failure if we can't just fix it with diet. It's like, no, you can definitely help these things a lot, but that's not the same thing as like, I'm done with that, or now it's gone, which is so freeing to let go of that narrative and not try to aspire to it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, again, I'm glad that there are more conversations about it. I'm glad that people are, on some level just more aware of PCOS and endo and all the different things. And we have new definitions for them now. And we know that it's not just a period condition and, all these different things, right? So thank you for kind of giving us an insight to what you've been able to do to manage these, because again, I feel like they're just more common than we ever knew. So I want everyone to just hear different pieces, and, everyone's story is different. Everybody is different, but I think to hear a more holistic approach to it, because I think a lot of us I wish that I had, this information and this set of facts, 10 years ago, even more, my period, I'm same as you first started. It's always been horrific. So, I know endo can be silent, and that's a whole other scenario, right? But for us, it wasn't. We just didn't know, and no one was telling us to look at this thing, and I didn't even know what the word was or what it meant. And I was in my 30s when that happened. It's crazy. So, so getting into, I want to talk about creating fertility and wellness on one side versus treating infertility.
Yeah.
You talked about in your bio, you mentioned baby blinders. And I was like, wow, because I've said on this podcast, I've said to people in general, to that point of the endo, I wish I knew what I knew, now then, because I think what we're going to dive into is that, when you get connected, let's say to a fertility specialist or a reproductive endocrinologist, I mean, their job is to get you pregnant for the most part, right? And that's their job.
Very reductionist, siloed.
Very siloed, right? And knowing what I know now is that I had no business diving into that side of this world when I just found out that I had endometriosis, and no one told me otherwise. It's not gonna matter, and I have fibroids, all that. These things don't matter. They just happen in the body, and we can do some surgery, we can give you some hormonal medication, but it's not going to affect you doing any of the things that you're doing. And we know
maybe you want to have a baby first before you take care of yourself.
And then you can deal with that down the road later. And and we're going to pump you full of estrogen. And no one thought that was a bad idea. It's a dumpster fire in there, literally. So with that all being said, please give us your take on kind of what is the difference in your approach to, creating wellness for the whole body and for fertility, because it all will benefit, versus just simply treating infertility. This is this big elusive topic.
This question, it's so packed full of different angles and so important. So, I mean, it's just having the ratios right. I talk a lot about ratios. So when I talk about fertility, or it could be perimenopause for me now, or it could be supporting a pregnancy, or it could be trying to fill in the blank. You can put on that blinders, the baby blinders, the perimenopause blinders, and then you're only looking at the body in bits and pieces. And you're only looking at, okay, so you have PCOS, you're not ovulating. Clomid can make you ovulate. Let's do that. And that is in that siloed, nothing else connects. Your inflammation, your quality of life, your mental health doesn't matter, which is how Western medicine is built. I mean, literally, we've never had mind body together in Western medicine. From the start, that was left to old fashioned medicines like Chinese medicine. And it was just what we can measure and what we can see and what we can dissect, except for the head. The head had to be given to the church. So mental health, so there's no interconnected. There's no place for things that we can't see. There's no place for mental health. And so we have just this okay, we're going to look at your ovaries. And that's how it's been since the 1500s. And so, when I first, when I went to the doctor and I was so excited, I was getting my master's degree, I was slowly getting my period back, and I went for an annual, and that doctor's like, well, do you want kids? And I'm like, probably. And they're like, I can just write you out a prescription for Clomid today. And I was like, I don't think I'm ready for that. I'm still working on it. And then this was before I found out that I had PCOS, because I got an ultrasound and it was my ovaries were chocolate chip cookies with double chips, and my AMH was 12. And I was like, if I would have gone on Clomid, that would have been, just have quadruplets.
Literally.
And so I was like, I am so glad that I just stumbled into saying no without even at that point knowing that it was PCOS. And so that reductionist, siloed, it's never been in the medicine. You're just looking at, okay, we're just troubleshooting if you need to ovulate, or we're just troubleshooting getting an embryo in your uterus. We're just fill in the blank, trying to get rid of your hot flashes. That's how it's built. And so that's what most of us know because we're swimming in that cultural soup of medicine. And so when you look at a medicine like Chinese medicine, you see that everything has always stayed interconnected and the mind and the body are totally the same. So we have tons and tons of ideas in Chinese medicine, ditto for Ayurveda and other holistic medicines that now science is proving like your gut and your digestion are related to your mood. That's always been a Chinese medicine thing. And now we know that the majority of your serotonin, your hormone that, or your neurochemical that helps you with mood, comes from your gut. And there's lots more examples of that. And so of course it matters, like your gut matters for your fertility, and your anxiety is related to your fertility and your gut, and all these things are crossing and all these things matter at once. So the way that I practice and the way that holistic medicine practices is that I call it that baby blinders part that you could exclusively focus on and just pay attention to if you're doing mainstream medicine, is like the nursery. And so you could pimp out your nursery and you could get all the best contractors, you could get all the best things and make the nursery look beautiful. But what tends to happen is our foundation is crumbling. That's like our actual sense of like our identity, our felt safety, our connection, our relationships. I mean, you've talked about this so beautifully in so many episodes of like, am I a woman? Am I a partner? Who am I in this world? What does this mean? So we have this incredible sense of threat to our identity and the trajectory of our life as we thought it was. And then we have a treatment that makes it even more threatening because it doesn't explain things. It doesn't listen to us. It's totally overwhelming hormonally and logistically. And it's like, just do that. You can get back to you later. And so the foundation now is crumbling. And so now our house is like, slipping into the pier. And then we have a house that's the mind and body, that's everything besides the nursery. And so, you can't sleep in the bedroom. Your kitchen is a mess. There's no working stove. Your furnace and your AC are on the fritz. Mentally, a family of squirrels moved into your attic. It's just tearing things up there every day, making nests, just like on a little hamster wheel, just spinning all the time. And then, so that's your house and your foundation and your nursery. And then you have this neighborhood that you're a part of that is like, well, I don't talk to my neighbors anymore because they all have 4 kids and they say insulting things and they like, just relax and you should adopt. And I loved your myth. I went way back and listened to some early ones. I was like, I could listen to you rant on these myths all day. I loved it. It was so delightful. Everyone should go back and listen to that because it was just like really good information and your take on it was so good. But yeah, you're, and then you're like, I don't know if my partner would want, of course they want to be with you. They love you. You're awesome. But you feel like, I don't know, I'm not on the same page as my nearest neighbor. We're maybe like ignoring each other over this fence of our different experiences. I'm supposed to be doing this with them, but it's very different for each of us. And so meanwhile, we keep trying to put on the baby blinders and just get the nursery to get a baby moved in, and then we'll do the rest later, which is, again, not our fault. That's the culture. So my take and my analogy is that you should put 25% of your energy into your nursery, and then 25. And when you add that all up, you have actual cultivation of wellness and actual cultivation. So for me, my HRT at this stage of life is like my 25%. It's a big deal. It helps me not feel like I'm getting electrocuted with sciatica with endo on my nerves. But if that's all I did and I fixated on it, I'd be a mess instead of like going out with my friends and singing karaoke and working on my sleep hygiene and eating good foods in my neighborhood and all of these things. So that's what I want more people to understand, and that it's not just like extra and like a bonus and like a fluffy way to do it. It's like actually the best science-based, evidence-based approach to fertility in this day and age when we know it's all connected.
I feel like you described my journey perfectly with the whole house. I was like, yes, girl, I was crumbling. The foundation was in shambles, like literally got to like, literally a breaking point. Physically a breaking point, mentally, emotionally, all the things. And it took me right back to that moment. And my therapist asked me what was your absolute, I'm not, what was your threshold? Because you kept taking, all the information and you got to keep moving forward and keep doing it. And, okay, that one didn't work. Okay, call us when you're ready for your next cycle. And I'm like, wait, we just lost a whole cycle. Like, what? Yeah, I'll call you when I'm ready. Like, you know what I mean? It was always just very like on to the next thing, right? It was on to the next thing, on to the next treatment. Let's try this, let's try that. And in that moment, you're so focused on that baby and the blinders. And, I mean, to some degree, you got to be all in on it. You can't play in this space, especially with the high stakes of all of it, financially, mentally, emotionally, without being all in. And you got to buy into that. Okay, I have to have all the hope and all the faith, all the eggs literally in one basket, to do it. And it's hard when you don't know otherwise, you're not being told otherwise. And so when you buy in 100%, that is your only point of reference, is what these REs are telling you. And I'm not faulting the REs for doing that job, but I do think there's absolutely fault. I said, but the system is broken when it comes to, they're also not told to do otherwise. They are going off what they were taught, what they have learned, and what their practice is built off of. So I think, my God, the whole analogy of the house made a lot of sense. And it was just taking me through different points of our journey. And you mentioned,
think about your RE's not trying, but their training is let's jackhammer your foundation a little bit, and it's
literally.
You just had a chemical pregnancy and it's devastating and you're out of embryos now and you'd have to go to the next swimmer now. If you want to stim, let us know, call the billing when you're ready to pay for that. And it's it's so unnecessarily harmful. And it's just the way the system is built. I say all the time, no individual is trying to be awful, but the system is like an abusive partner. It's there's so much.
It's toxic. It's so toxic.
Withholding and deferring your needs and wants for something else that somebody's telling you is more important than that. And so if we could just come back to of course you want to give it your all, but what if your all was to it all, and what if that was, my patients, my outcomes are better than any study I've ever seen. And even in the case, I love that you're talking about some stories don't end the way that we work really hard to. And that is a form of success, to come to peace and clarity and closure. And that is the hardest success here. So if we redefine what success looks like, and then we put our all into taking off the baby blinders and being the best shot I have at my IVF working is to do it this way. And it will also protect me if it doesn't work, because it is a complicated medical condition. And I'm not going to think that I can just type A my way through it, because that's not how medical conditions work. And that is not fair.
It's not. The whole thing is not. And you're right. I feel there's just so many of us who are type A that end up being in this community. It's I was what is the connection with that? I don't know. But I hear that a lot. And a lot of us, you feel that way at the beginning. It's okay, you know what? No, I can get my way out of this, and we can, scenario this and plot this out and do X, Y, and Z. And to your point, I have had to do a lot of deep diving in this year. We've lost our last 2 embryos that we have. I could not get any more eggs. I had no more fallopian tubes. This journey has changed my biology. I mean, other things too, but my entire biology is different than when I first started this. And so at this point, we're at a place where success may look different. And I'm grateful to talk to you and I just told someone the other day, this World Childless Week is when we're recording this. And so, being childless, not by choice. And I talked to her about thanking her because she chose to end her journey after going through a lot and found, a thriving life on the other side. But it doesn't take away the hurt and the grief and what we're about to get into, PTSD and the trauma of what I thought life would be like, especially after going through fertility treatments. And when you don't end up with that baby at home, and when you don't feel wow, I thought it would all be worth it. Or I thought, the little worth every shot, I can't wait to get the onesie.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Do that Christmas card with all the shots. It's all going to be
all of it. I have, bins upstairs full of things, but little hope gifts, I'm a little. So it's what do you do with that? And how do you work through it. So let's jump into the PTSD and fertility space, because I was literally at a trauma and resilience workshop last night for a nonprofit that I work with. And we were talking about PTSD versus complex trauma and et cetera. This was like right on schedule. So you had said that over 50% of people in fertility treatments develop PTSD. And even when it works, even when you brought that child home, there's still a lot that is left unsettled there, I'm sure. I've talked to a lot of women now on the podcast and off who have been in that space, who have, crossed over from infertility to parenthood. And they're like, it's still there. Like yes, it is better to, I'm blessed to look at that child and really feel like it was worth it.
Yeah.
But there's still layers of grief trauma, stress, PTSD. And I feel like there's not enough conversation around PTSD and infertility. So please tell us how you attack that, how you approach it with your clients, and kind of what you found, I guess, during this time.
So the statistic is just shy of 50%, but I bet you it's higher. It's 46%, but it is with or without a kid. And I think it kind of came to me. I like thinking in analogies. I like using analogies a lot. And it was like, it's kind of like telling a bunch of soldiers, like, if you're side one, you don't get PTSD, you're not allowed. It's like, sure, you lost a lot and you were shook to your core and you felt very unsafe, but like, you won. That's just, we would never. And so that's how it is with fertility. It's not like something good happening erases bad things. I have so many good things in my life. I still have this assault and childhood stuff that lives in my nervous system. And I think that's what trauma, really, PTSD boils down to, is it's things that live in our nervous system that aren't necessarily logical, aren't always things that we can just like talk through or breathe through. It's like, why do I feel activated into fight or flight when I'm safe? And acute PTSD, the kind of PTSD that you can easily get a diagnosis for, is like something bad happened and you have flashbacks for it and certain things are triggers. So a classic example is like you get in a car accident with a car that's red. You see red cars and you feel really activated. Complex PTSD is just a series of subtly threatening things over and over enough times that it's much more nebulous. And I might be wrong about this, but as of the last time I looked at continuing education, there's not even a way for therapists to make this diagnosis code. And so like there's so many people walking around with childhood adversity, with different levels of parental mental health or addiction disease, then fertility on top of it. And this is complex PTSD, where it's just like where the buffer should be, yay wide for what you can tolerate and stay regulated in, it just shrinks. And not all trauma is created equal, and other things can kind of mitigate it. So having more or less support or more or less other resources or getting early therapy and interventions, these things can all make a difference. But ultimately, whatever shows up in your body is real, and that's trauma. And it isn't logical. It's just like, I just feel like I'm vibrating with this anxiety that I can't talk through necessarily. So there's a lot of very cool somatic modalities, which acupuncture is, where it's like body-based trauma therapies that are showing up really beautifully in the research and really helping our nervous system without us having to understand it, which is a very cool thing to be doing with the population that I work with, especially, and with myself.
I love it. Yeah, I love that you said that not all trauma is created equal. Mm-hmm. That's really, really important, I think, to say and to embrace and to realize in our lives and day to day. And I love that you are just connecting the dots, because to your point, like, people are for whatever reason not connecting the dots in terms of like, hey, these treatments are causing this, these losses are causing this. Like, again, like you said, even if you do come out on the other side, child in hand, we're happy. Like, we can't act like this didn't change me. I'm a different person than I was whenever you started this. So I appreciate the work that you're doing in that space. Let's get into acupuncture and fertility. So I always say, like, fertility literally brought acupuncture to my life because of course I'd heard about it. I had thought about it for years. And then of course, when I started doing more research and finding out that you can, there are things that you can do, to help during your fertility, either your cycle or just with, working with your treatment plan, before retrieval, after a transfer, all these different things. I was like, wow. So it brought me to it, and I've, kept it around as one of the tools in my toolbox to use when I need it. So tell us a little bit about how you kind of decide, okay, what certain paths do my clients need? Is acupuncture truly for everybody? And people are scared of needles and they have all this hesitation around all the things. But, how have you kind of made this a really core part of your practice?
Yeah, that is a great question again. So it is not for everybody. So one of my favorite studies on acupuncture during IVF was where they had couples go off-site on the day of their embryo transfer with an acupuncturist they've never met, and actually decreased the pregnancy rates in that group. And I love that because there's over a dozen studies that say acupuncture is very helpful. And the conclusion was there's enough that show that it's helpful. There must be something about the design of this study that shows that it's like something else was going on. And it was that it was a stranger stabbing you with needles, driving to a place you'd never driven before. Like, shocker. That's so intuitive. And so you can absolutely, and that's like such a baby blinders moment where it's like, some people will call me and they'll be like, I hate needles. I'm terrified of acupuncture. I read this study, or my RE told me about you and I should add you, and my transfer is in 2 days. And can you come be there with me? And I'm like, I cannot, ma'am. I cannot, because here's why. Like, that wouldn't be unethical of me to do this to you. And here's why. And, sometimes that makes sense. And sometimes it's like, no, but there's the studies that show that it helps. And I think some of them find other acupuncturists that will say yes. But that's just my line in the sand for my practice. But there is a ton of other research that shows not just the day of transfer, but actually the best acupuncture studies is on what's called whole systems acupuncture, which boils down to no protocols, which is what makes acupuncture really hard to study. Because if we're really looking at just a bunch of anovulatory people with PCOS, you could get a protocol really easily. But if you're looking at a bunch of anovulatory people with PCOS that are also doing a true Chinese medicine diagnosis to pick the acupuncture treatment and the other things that go with it, one might run hot, one might run cold, one might sweat easy, one might only have night sweats, one might be anxious, one might be depressed. Each one of those would add up to a different constellation and a different pattern. So although they have the same nursery diagnosis, they very much, to have the best Chinese medicine treatment, need to have different treatments. And so it does make acupuncture really hard to study a truly holistic. And I think that's why my outcomes beat the studies, is because that's all I'm like, no, I'm not just going to show up and do the study for your embryo transfer. Oh, you have a headache today? Oh, you were like really stressed because you couldn't poop after your progesterone started. Oh, you just got in a big fight with your partner the night before and you didn't sleep and your eyes are puffy because you were up crying and you feel like you jinxed everything. These are different treatments. And of course they have certain things, like we know we can help with pelvic circulation. That's a really cool thing that we've established. We know that we can help relax the cervix so the catheters can get through for IUIs and IVF easier, and also things like D&Cs with miscarriages, more comfortable for the patient, easier to do for the doctors. We know that we can, certain points, generate stem cells, adult type stem cells. So that's really cool from a modern fertility perspective, because they're also dabbling with things like plasma-rich protein kind of washes in the uterus and ways to get stem cells in that are really expensive and really inaccessible, versus like, here's a couple acupuncture points that seem to generate the type of stem cells that we can make as adults and flood them through our body and help things be more robust. So that's way more accessible and way more cost effective than a lot of the kind of fringy stuff. We can regulate immune systems. We can change different kinds of inflammatory markers. It's all super specific. I'm a real nerdy acupuncturist.
I love that. I wish you were close by.
I love explaining it. So I have a YouTube channel that I go over some of the reductionist stuff. I have online programs that explain the big picture and help people understand their own Chinese. That's another. I'm a weird acupuncturist because I didn't know acupuncture. So I was like, why wouldn't I explain people's patterns to them? Like when I look at your constellation, like I could just pick the points for that and prescribe the herbs for that and tell you what to eat that goes with that. But that is like more of the same. It's more practitioner centric. I call it faux holism. I coined that term where it's like, it's holistic, but is it really helping your because if I'm just bossing you around and making you buy stuff, that kind of feels like
it's on the line. It's on the line of
versus like, here's what your pattern is. Here's how I can tell. Here's all the things that go with it. Isn't this really cool? And now you can start following along and decide what you want to do and see how it shows up in real time. And that's so exciting. And again, if we're looking at all the things, it's like, okay, yeah, I didn't move a baby into my nursery, but my foundation is feeling shored up and I'm kicking the squirrels out and like I'm starting to cook in my kitchen again.
Yes.
Good stuff.
It's great stuff. And like I said, I wish you were closer because you are the one that we all want. Like you are the ideal person for so many people, I'm sure. So if somebody was like, okay, I think I want to find someone in my area, what are the, I don't know, 2 or 3 like core questions if they're going in there discussing fertility wellness, like what are some of the core questions that you would have someone ask a acupuncturist to make sure that they might align with someone who is kind of in our thinking bubble with the holistic approach to it?
I mean, it's like a vibe check. Of course, there's certain education, but it's like if you get the feel that somebody's like going to shame you for like, oh, you're doing hormones, I just think you could do it without birth control. It's like, nope, thank you next. Like that's a thank you next moment for sure. And for me at least, because again, it's like, why would we pick sides when like what one side is good at, the other one's not, and vice versa? Like Western medicine is very good at troubleshooting reductionist things and having like specific treatments a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times. And Chinese medicine, not so much. Like I'm not going to fix my broken arm or my strep throat with Chinese medicine. And so, but Chinese medicine is really great at all the connecting the dots, mind, body, multi-system, polygenetic, all the stuff that we mostly deal with, especially as people with cycling hormones and ovaries. So yeah, I would do a check. I would get a feel. And the same thing for like, if you're looking for a midwife or an OBGYN, if you're looking for a doula, if you're pregnant, if you're looking for a therapist to work with, like if somebody's I have a whole blog post I can send you to put in the link about like, what is faux holistic? Like if it's about their values or how they feel about what you should do, it's not truly holistic. It's like, do you want to do hormones? Are you open to, do you want to do the fastest thing? Do you want to do the cheapest thing? Do you want to do the most natural thing? Like all of those things are right for different people. But when people ask me like, what would you do, Nicole? I'm like, you're not an acupuncturist.
Yeah, I
can't. A 47-year-old acupuncturist. So, like chances are it doesn't matter what I would do because that's just neither here nor there.
It's neither here nor there. So getting into discussing we've discussed it in a little bit here and there, your practice, your business, Life Healing Life. So tell us a little bit about that and when you started it, and, kind of what are the most, I guess, rewarding parts of the work that you're doing, and how can someone connect with you if they want to learn more about your company?
I love every little bit of it, like the hard stuff, the exciting stuff, the joyful stuff, the mundane stuff. Like my grandfather was a motivational speaker and I paid to go see him because he's also a little bit sexist and wasn't telling the girl grandchildren his thing. But he was like, make it a goal to like, just put it out there and like, let your brain, let the universe, let whatever connect the dots to like lead you. And I was like, I want to do something that I'm really good at, that uses all my interests. And it's like, I thought about being like a pastor for a hot second. I thought about being a teacher for a second. I thought about being an interior decorator for a second. I was going to be a geneticist before my own trauma. I'm really fascinated with the human body. I'm really fascinated with psychology. And so like, that's my practice, is all of those things. Even my clinic is really pretty. That matters. That's part of the treatment. So I think, I don't even know where this question was going, but I love everything about it. That's what it was. And I've had wait lists because I am weird in so many ways and delightful ways. And so that's when I decided to start making online content so that I wouldn't be bottlenecked, because people can get good holistic care, whether it's acupuncture, massage, yoga, Ayurveda, and good Western care, but they need to know how to like put it together and get to the foundation and look at it as a whole. So that's what my online education is really about, so that you don't have to go through me. And I make it like super inexpensive, and a lot of it is free. And I work 15 to 20 hours a week making it without getting paid yet. Someday it'll make money, but it's just a passion project. So if people want to check out, I've got lots of information available all online. And then again, find an acupuncturist if that's what you're looking for. Check out their credentials, of course, and then make sure that they feel truly holistic.
Thank you so much. I know, again, it's hard to wrap up, and I feel like we can keep going because there's more things that we have to ask. But thank you, Nicole, for being a part of our community. Thank you for being a resource. Thank you for being a light. Thank you for bringing the facts that we need, because my goal here is to help somebody else at the beginning of their journey. We don't want to have, years go by, 10 years, 15 years plus, trying to get diagnosis, trying to, figure it all out by ourselves, and, trial and erroring our bodies and our minds and our spirits. We want to help someone else, not have to kind of walk the path that a lot of us had to walk, because there just really wasn't information for the people out there to connect the dots for us. So thank you for doing that. This is season 4. This is going to be wrapping up very, very almost to the end of season 4. I'm super excited to just see what comes next of all the work that we've been doing and all the people that we've been connecting with. But I'm thankful. I think, as you mentioned, we have lots of episodes to go back to. So, make sure you check us out, Fertility Fair, on everything. Go back, listen to past episodes, check out some of our YouTube episodes. The last
one, I was just walking the dog being like, yes.
Oh my God, I can't remember. I was like, you mentioned the adoption one. I was like, I was probably on a rant. This is my early on when I was angry.
I was dabbling all the episodes before I'm a guest. So
Yes. I appreciate you. I was in the different spaces, and it's so interesting to go back now and play where I was then and where I am now.
You get locked it in different moments.
Yeah, there's a lot happening. There's still a lot happening, but it's different. I have different tools now, different person now. But yes, go back, follow us, check us out. If you have anyone that you need to connect the podcast with, please make sure you tag, like, subscribe, and share with someone else. And you all heard it. If you want to connect with Nicole, with her company, get into her free resources. Free is the optional word. I mean, pay her for her services, but whatever you can get for free in this space.
Yeah, lifehealinglife.com is my website. I'll give you the link.
Yes. All right. Well, as I always say, I hope you're well. Hope you can be well. And if not, find a way to be well. And I'm your forever friend in fertility. So stay hopeful.